Hey folks, some time ago I did a review of an Aiersi guitar. I bought it myself and I did the review of it and put it up on my YouTube channel, and it was for a solid top dreadnought cutaway that they make. So it was an actual spruce, I think Sapele, if I remember rightly, guitar. And I found for the price, I think it was like 99 or 119 or something like that, for it to be a decent guitar. I mean, it met with the requirements for a beginning guitar for me, and I gave it a pretty good review. I've also reviewed some Aiersi ukuleles, a bit more mixed, but generally pretty good. So recently that company reached out to me, the second to do so, and asked me if I would review their beginner model, which is a guitar they sell on Amazon for $69, which is pretty cheap for a steel string guitar or any guitar. I said, sure, yeah, I'll be willing to check it out if you want to send me one. At first they wanted me to buy it and have them reimburse me upon seeing a review posted, to which I said no. I think there's a moral issue there. If somebody wants me to review something, they can send it to me. I'm not going to buy it and then be at the mercy of their payment depending on what kind of review I post. And I've heard of people receiving that promise from manufacturers, posting a unsavory review and then not getting their money. So I told them flat out, I said, no, if you want to send me a guitar, I'll happily review it for you. I'll review it right away and I'll review it honestly. But I'm not paying up front for it, particularly because this guitar I wouldn't buy. I bought the solid spruce, I think it was a spruce top, I'm not sure if it was solid. I bought that version because it met with my requirements for beginner guitars. Whereas I tend not to buy really cheap all basswood models, so I wouldn't have bought it anyway. So I told them they had to send it to me if they wanted me to review it, which they did, to their credit. So I received it. I'm not going to show you the unboxing video because I cringe at those, as you know. So I have it here. It comes in a dust cover vinyl cover case, gig bag, which is nothing special, but at least it's something. I've seen worse, I've seen a lot better, but it's something. It comes in some sort of bag that you can carry the guitar back and forth with, so I'll give them credit for that. It also comes with a nice collection of accessories. You get a capo, which is a bit unusual for a beginner guitar, a very cheap strap, an optional stick-on pickguard if you want it, and an extra set of strings, and probably some picks in there too. And then the truss rod key was tied to the top of the guitar. When I got the guitar out, and I'll show it to you now, here is the guitar. Alright, so it's kind of a concert shape with a cutaway. Very, very typical looking guitar for this price range. When I got it out, the first thing I tried to do was tune it. And it took me a while to get it tuned, principally because these tuners right here, it's flat again, but you can turn them for quite a few seconds before they engage. So the tuning ratio on these keys is very poor. I've got it close here. So it plays, it's in tune, so we give them credit for that. However, a lot of cheap guitars have tuners that are better than this. So I would say, and these are 300-line tuners, incredibly cheap. At one point, I didn't think the E string was going to tune up. It just wasn't moving at all, and I stopped for a minute, and then I recranked it, and the gear finally engaged and tuned it up close to pitch, and then it stopped, and I had to wait. A beginner's not going to deal with that. They're not. They're going to get this, they're going to crank the tuner, and if the tuner doesn't move the pitch of the string, they're going to put it back in a box and send it back. So one thing I would say to Aiersi, if you want a honest opinion, I know it's a $69 guitar, but there are a lot of $60, $70, $80 guitars that have better tuners than this. So that would be my first point. Other things that are more forgivable. I really don't like all basswood guitars, even though they're cheap, and some of them don't sound too bad. You know, it looks roughly like spruce. This is all the same wood. And because they're painting it to appear like spruce and sapele or mahogany, it has that sort of phony look to it, which is not the main reason I don't like basswood guitars. I just don't think they sound as good as even plywood spruce or plywood cedar. This one, it does sound, it's okay. I would say that the wood is fairly blotchy and ugly. You can even see a couple of dark marks on there as well. So it's a pretty ugly top. But it's $69, so I think you can live with that. That's something I think that's forgivable. There are a couple of other things to note on this. I don't know if you can see on here, but the binding doesn't go all the way to the neck. There's a gap there, so this is painted on. And there are gaps in the binding and finish imperfections. You can see where the decal, there it is, goes up and was cut against the fretboard. So of course this is not a laminated or a ingrained decal, it's just a sticker, and it kind of gives itself away. So there's a lot of ugly features about the guitar. I'm just going to be honest. The top is kind of ugly and scruffy. I don't really like this red paint job on the back. It just looks cheap to me, sort of reddish brown. Doesn't look like wood, looks like plastic. And then there are lots of gaps of paint in the binding. And the top is really scruffy, as I mentioned. The neck is okay. It's functional. It has a Richlite board, which is a composite board. It's not real wood. It's called Richlite on the specs on Amazon, so I'll take them at their word. These really cheap brass frets that you see on really cheap guitars, like $50, $60, $70 guitars. There is some fret sprout. I'm feeling it already. I'll probably feel more. It's not terrible, but you can feel it. So that's going to put off new students as well. Also, the action is about 2 millimeters too high. When I've got it tuned close to pitch, it sits about 6 millimeters from the 12th fret here up here. And the other one's about 5. That's about 2 millimeters too high. The problem is, when you look at the saddle, I don't know if I can give you a side view of the saddle, there's hardly anything there. So you really don't have room in the saddle to go down 2 millimeters. So you've already got a problem setting this guitar up. And this is the issue with guitars like this. It's better to pay $100 or $120 for their next model up. For the Aiersi guitar I got last time, it's better to pay for that than to accept this quality. And I wish companies would transfer those facts or those details onto their customers. Years ago, I worked for a US wholesaler, and I was the quality control guy. And in our catalog, which was a wholesale catalog that went out to all of the retail shops in the US, we were pretty big in those days, was a cheap substandard guitar, I think made by Woods, which was a product of Samick at the time. It was one of these $60, $70 jobs, all basswood. And I used to do the quality control and all the returns for the company, and I used to get barrels of them back, just vats full of these guitars back. And finally I went to the CEO of the company and I said, look, stop selling those guitars. And he says, well, you got to have a guitar to offer for beginners. Not everyone can go out and buy a Seagull. I said, sure. I said, but make your beginning guitar the $100 model with a spruce ply top. Don't do this stuff. Sell the idea to parents that it's better to invest an extra $20, $30 and still get a really cheap guitar for around $100, $120 and have it be made out of the correct materials with decent parts that work, that can be set up. This guitar plays, right? But I wouldn't feel comfortable selling this guitar. I wouldn't. because I think that it's going to be a struggle to learn on. The action's too high; it can't really be corrected. In order to correct it, you would have to do a neck shim, shim the neck, change the angle slightly. It's not worth it to do that. This is a set neck. There's no way you're going to take the neck out of the mortise or whatever joint it is and do that. It's just not worth it. I mean, you could take the saddle out, shave the bridge down, and correct it that way, but even that's not worth it for this manner of guitar. It needs fretwork. It certainly needs new tuners. So I would say to Aiersi, concentrate on your next model up and make that your entry level, and don't bother with these. I know that I risk not making friends there, but that's just my honest opinion. I mean, really, there's not much I can do with this. You might think, well, at least you got a guitar out of it. Well, no, I'm going to have to do 1 to 2 hours of work on this to get it to play, and then give it away. So no, it's not really, a bonus in my eyes. I can't even take the parts off it. And that was the problem I had with the guitars that came back when I worked for the wholesaler. A lot of times when you get returns of guitars, you just part them out. You could take the tuners off, the bridge, the saddles, even sometimes the necks, and use them as parts. This guitar you can't, because the tuners are a very poor ratio. They need to be replaced anyway. I wouldn't put these on another guitar. So those are trash. And then, the bronze strings, they're not too bad. I don't think they're branded names or anything, but you probably wouldn't be able to reuse them. The saddle and nut are plastic, of course. Once they're taken off this guitar, they wouldn't be much use for another guitar. You might be able to use it on another acoustic. The saddle's already too low. I suppose you could reuse the bridge pins. They seem to be okay, but not much else of this guitar is salvageable for anything. So you can't even part it out. So this is my problem with these kind of guitars. You're trying to do a service to the populace by offering a guitar that's around $70. Think about it as $75 with tax, with a gig bag and accessories to get somebody started. But I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 kids receiving this guitar for a school class or something like this are going to return this. They are. You might get a couple that keep it, that struggle on and maybe just quit, and the guitar ends up in a closet. But when I got this guitar, I couldn't even get it to tune up for a good 10-20 minutes. I finally got it close to pitch, and it seems to be holding okay. But that's going to put a lot of people off, and then the action is just too high on this guitar. It's not the worst I've seen, but it's a couple of millimeters too high, and there's just no room in the saddle at all. The neck is very straight, slightly overbowed, but there is a truss rod, so I might be able to put some curvature back in the neck, and but that's going to make the action even higher. So it's got setup issues. I can probably make it playable and give it to someone, somebody who has no money and wants something to bang on. And I've seen worse. I don't want to give the impression that this is absolutely the worst guitar I've seen for $70 on Amazon. No, I've seen plenty of these. When I used to work in a repair shop, these used to come in all the time. Usually within 2 weeks of people working on them, selling them rather, and usually they just needed a lot of setup, and sometimes we had to tell the customers there's not much we can do about this guitar. I mean, it needs like thousands of dollars worth of repair, and it's a $70 guitar, and that's not a fun conversation to have. Normally that parent or that person then has to go and up to the next tier and buy another guitar and invest a little bit more money than they did on this one. So yeah, it's playable, I'll give it that. It's got issues. I liked their tear up from this. I like the materials. I thought the guitar was much better made. The parts, the finish, everything about it was of higher quality. I get what they're trying to do with this, but I'd rather have a kid start on that other guitar, to be honest with you. The chances of them continuing are much higher than if they started on something like this. And the sad thing about this is actually a playable one. I've actually got tons of these really cheap basswood guitars that don't play at all, that are warped or have humps in the fretboard that you just can't set up. They're just not fixable. So that worries me about this too. I mean, this is probably one of the better ones that they could have sent me. Not the best, but probably one of the better ones, because I've seen a lot of guitars just like this, and they really are, they really do have a massive high return rate because they just have so many issues. So there you go. I wish I could say more positive things. It works. You might get a guitar you can set up and play. It does come with a dust cover, and it does come with some accessories. But if you just spend an extra $20, $25, you'd get a guitar that's 3-4 times better than this. So that's my assessment of this guitar. There's no real model number to this. It's the Aiersi SGO 26C NA for natural. I guess that's the model number. All basswood. Entry-level guitar. Interesting that on the specs it says ambidextrous too. I suppose technically it is, because it can be played like that, I suppose, but it is a right-handed guitar, so that's an interesting thing that they would put on there. But there you go, just a very, very basic basswood entry-level guitar that you know, it will function as a guitar if you can get it set up, but I really think it's worth going to the next level and investing as little as $20, $25 more for a guitar you're going to be more happy with, and that your kid or whoever is learning on it is more apt to continue. All right, folks, see you on the next one.